Thanks for watching. It's the Daily Debate live here on Nile International. I'm Amb.Hussein and I have the pleasure of your company for the coming hour. We will be talking about the major news stories that make headlines. During the past week, a very important visit by President Mohamed Morsi to Turkey. We are going to discuss the several pressing regional issues that actually came in President Morsi's address that was delivered at the annual conference of Turkey's ruling Justice and Development Party. Many important issues, of course, cooperation and seeking an alliance of Turkey comes on top of the list. A large delegation also of businessmen from the various fields accompanied President Morsi last Sunday on his official visit to Turkey. So in this episode, we'll be talking more about the ongoing efforts at strengthening relations between Egypt and Turkey. Also a top headline today, of course, since the incidents of yesterday, Turkey approves action in Syria. Turkey's parliament authorizes actually the military operations inside Syria after the deadly shelling of a Turkish town. However, Ankara is insisting that this is not a mandate for war. And talking about the top headlines, always an honor and a pleasure to have with His Excellency Ambassador Hussein Avni Botsali, who is the Turkish ambassador to Egypt. Always a pleasure to have His Excellency. We're going to delve more into the top stories and the top news headlines, but right after taking a view of highlights of the day, stories making headlines on Thursday. President Morsi laid a wreath of flowers on the tomb of the unknown soldier and late President Anwar al-Sadat. This marks Egypt's celebration of the 39th anniversary of the 6th of October war victory. Earlier on Wednesday, the president honored the names of al-Sadat and the former Chief of Staff General Saad al-Din al-Shazli. This came in recognition of the role in the October war victory. The president also on Thursday headed a meeting of the Supreme Council of the Armed Forces at the premises of the Defense Ministry, marking celebration of the 39th anniversary of the 6th of October war victory. And this important meeting was attended by the Minister of Defense, General Abdel Fattah al-Sisi, Lieutenant General al-Sisi, and Chief of Staff Sidi Subhi. Commanders also of the main branches of the armed forces were present. The top officials reviewed means of further consolidating efficiency, fighting capabilities, in addition of the continued development of internal and external situations. Also among headlines today, the Cairo Criminal Court sentenced businessman Ahmed Izz to 7 years in prison. Izz was charged of money laundering of gains made out of profiteering, and he was an associate of the ousted President Hosni Mubarak's son Gamal. Ahmed Izz is a steel magnate, and he is a former senior official in Mubarak's now dissolved National Democratic Party. He was also fined a massive of 19 billion Egyptian pounds. Egypt had warned on Thursday against the spilling over of the Syrian crisis into neighboring states. The warning came after the shell that was fired from Syria that hit the Turkish side of the border, killing 5 citizens. The Foreign Minister Mohammed Kamel Amr had expressed his condolences to the Turkish people, called on the Syrian government to guarantee that such an incident will not be repeated again. Amr stressed that Egypt will continue its efforts in order to stop the bloodshed in Syria through making contacts with regional and international powers. Turkey has passed a law authorizing military operations against Syria after the deadly shelling from Syria that killed 5 civilians in a Turkish border town. In response, around 60 anti-war activists tried to march on the Turkish parliament earlier on Thursday in Ankara to protest against the bill. 60 anti-war activists tried to march on the Turkish parliament to protest against a bill that would renew what they term to be government's power to authorize military operations outside the Turkish border. The path was blocked by riot police earlier in the day. And on the economic side of the news, for the second consecutive session, the stock market continued its gains in Egypt Thursday, mainly boosted by the purchasing operations from both Arab and the foreign investors. The gains of the market capitalization were £2 billion, they reaching £395.2 billion, whereas the total of the transaction volume was £1.7 billion. The main index, EGX 30, was up 1.24%, closing at 5,726.12 points, while EGX 70 for small and medium shares edged up 0.14%, ending at 527.44 points. That's all what we have for you for the main stories that made headlines throughout Thursday, and we are going to go right away to talk about the main issues that we have discussed together at the beginning of the show: Egypt and Turkey seeking alliance, and more about the Turkish parliament authorizing military operations inside Syria after the deadly shelling of the Turkish town earlier. So we'll talk about this in details right after this report. And we have with us His Excellency Ambassador Hussein Avni Botsali, the Turkish ambassador to Egypt. Honored, Mr. Ambassador, with your presence, and we'll be back. We're back, ladies and gentlemen, and we're talking about Egypt and Turkey seeking alliance. We have with us Excellency Ambassador Hussein Avni Botsali, the Turkish ambassador to Egypt. Mr. Ambassador, a pleasure to have you.
It's always a pleasure to be your guest. Thank you, Mrs. Hussein.
Thank you very much, sir. And we start off by President Morsi's words, and if I would quote him, I put it like: hopes and goals bind us together, Egypt and Turkey, to achieve the freedom and justice that all the nations are struggling for. Well, quite a very warm beginning to start with. How do you read the message, Mr. Ambassador?
First of all, the visit of His Excellency President Morsi to Turkey was a very swift, intense and equally successful one. The President was accompanied by several ministers, ministers of finance, international cooperation, trade and industry, and one of his assistants, Dr. Haddad, was accompanying him, and also I think nearly 100 Egyptian businessmen from all walks of the industry and trade and all priority sectors of Egypt, all predominantly very successful businessmen. They have accompanied him. This visit was a dramatic turning point. I think it marked in the history of our bilateral relations, not only in the recent times, but for several centuries. I think this was a qualitative giant step forward, a leap forward, if I may say so, because it marked the first slice of the $2 billion financial package that Turkish government and people have committed to Egyptian recovery and economic stability. It has been signed between Egyptian finance minister and Turkish deputy prime minister in charge of economy, Ali Babacan. President Morsi had an excellent meeting with President Abdullah Gül. The two presidents had also tete-a-tete and delegations meetings, and they had a lunch together. And President Morsi participated in the Congress of the Turkish ruling party, AK Party.
Right.
And it was very significant. The President delivered a long speech. There were several state dignitaries, leaders, political party leaders, but the longest speech was President Morsi's, and it contained messages to Turkish and Egyptian peoples, to the region, and to the world. It was very important.
Yeah, among the messages, Excellency, how the Arab world and the Arab Spring needs you. This is what referring to Turkey. The Arab Spring needs you, needs your support to achieve sought-for stability. How is Turkey working on this sense of support today?
First of all, our perception is that we need each other. It's not only Arab Spring countries needing Turkey, we all need each other, and the strategy, the perspective put forward by Turkey is essentially to gain the ownership of our own region and to do whatever is best for our common destiny. And our common destiny lies in lasting peace, stability, economic recovery, economic development, sustained growth, better education, better health conditions, better social security arrangements for our peoples, improving the infrastructure, improving the housing schemes, and at the end of the day, to prepare a more prosperous future for our children. I have a remark to make. We have two enemies. The first enemy is faqr, poverty.
Right.
And the second enemy is jahala, ignorance, illiteracy. So we have to fight against these enemies together. And this is going to determine the destiny of our nations. And we have to succeed in this war. And we believe Egypt is going to succeed in its fight against poverty and fight against ignorance and illiteracy. And we invest in Egypt's future. Before going to Turkey, I have told my friends in Egypt that now is the time for cooperating with Egypt and not tomorrow. And this has been the message of Turkish leadership, and I'm very proud to see that the people of Egypt and their elected president and his entourage, the cabinet, the ministers, and every interlocutor that I'm speaking with seem to have the same perspective. So I think we have before us a historic opportunity to build upon very solid foundations of the principle of mutual interests as sovereign equal partners, Turkey and Egypt, on the two shores of the Mediterranean, at a very crucial turning point of world history and civilizational history. I think once again, two pillars of democracy, hopefully Egypt completing its successful transition, and two pillars of civilization and two pillars of moderation will bridge between the two worlds, East and West, Islam and other religions and different cultures. And this is going to replace all those kahanats, the prophecies, the dark prophecies of conflict and confrontation, which is contaminating the global thinking, will come to an end. Of course, we need to be patient, but we don't have the luxury to fail.
Right, we don't have the luxury to fail, and actually out of this sense of optimism and persistence of not failing and being up to the challenge, how are we working to strengthen the alliance together today? What sort of a mechanism are we following up on?
First of all, we have a mechanism created last September, you would remember, during Prime Minister Erdogan's visit to Egypt.
Right.
It was a successful visit as well. And the two governments, the two prime ministers, have created a mechanism of joint steering of our economic and all actually aspects of our bilateral cooperation. And that is called the High-Level Strategic Cooperation Council. It is like an intergovernmental council co-chaired by the two prime ministers, and all the relevant operational ministers, whether it's energy, whether it's trade, industry, investments, housing, infrastructure, telecommunications, power production, you name it, education, culture, tourism, all these operational ministers linked to bilateral development issues, bilateral cooperation issues, will come together and will have actually a joint cabinet meeting. And now the two governments have agreed, and President Morsi and President Abdullah Gül and also Prime Minister Erdogan agreed to have the second round of this meeting in Cairo, in Egypt, upon invitation of Prime Minister Hisham Kandil. Inshallah, we're going to have Prime Minister Recep Tayyip Erdogan for the second time in less than a year, or within exactly a year, visiting Egypt, but this time it will be on the top of having this $2 billion of financial package. The first slice is signed, and let me give you a brief background on that. This is going to be for a 5-year maturity term, and the conditions are very convenient, and the first 3 years will be grace period. So the Egyptian government will have the possibility of using this financial facility offered, extended by Turkey, for economic stabilization, new mega investment projects, and inshallah it's going to multiply our mutual benefits.
Hopefully, inshallah. Mr. Ambassador, we know that Turkey, like Egypt, passed through actually many challenges, after which Turkey emerged stronger. How are we gaining experience today from the political experience of Turkey? What are the lessons taught from the Turkish experience as you read it?
As I have said in our last meeting, again, before the presidential elections, you would remember, the best thing is actually every country creating its own indigenous experience. And Egypt definitely has the human resources, the qualified visionary thinkers, the political leadership and everything, but it requires sustained vision, and it requires determination to follow. From Turkish experience, definitely we have had success stories, and particularly in the field of economic restructuring, some of our experience and our relations with Europe, etc., could provide Egypt useful comparative let's say, examples. And the data and the success stories may help Egypt build its own experience. And it would also, we believe, facilitate, in order to reinvent the wheel. I think we will be better off if we give head-to-head, hand-to-hand, or hand-in-hand. We work together in certain areas and combine our forces and potentials. Because Turkey is providing access to Euro-Asia, and Egypt is providing access to Middle East, Gulf, and Africa. So this is the ideal median for partnership. We are going to complement each other. And our combined force, our combined population will soon be 200 million in less than 10 years. Our combined GNPs, gross national products, is already over $1 trillion. Our combined market force, our export and imports total nearly, I think, 476 or $80 billion. So when you talk about Egypt and Turkey in the Eastern Mediterranean, in the Middle East, in Africa, you just name it, we are the largest combined economic force, and this is going to transform our two countries as centers of attraction. And when investments come to Egypt, it will benefit Turkey. When investments and tourism come to Turkey, it will benefit Egypt. And consequently, we will also help expand the welfare and growth into our region. So we also look forward to cooperating and partnering with Egypt through joint ventures and through joint biddings in the third countries in the region, in Sudan, in Libya, and in the Gulf states. There's a lot to do in terms of construction, reconstruction, and all in all, we can say building the future together.
Right. Mr. Ambassador, the trade between the two countries had actually reached $3.8 billion. That was in the first 9 months of 2012. What are your expectations for the volume of trade?
I expect net 30% increase in this year compared to the previous year. And this is at a time when everybody else is saying Egyptian economy is paralyzed, Egypt is going through bottlenecks, and the collapse is imminent, etc. So all these negative prophecies, I think when you look at, and it's not only this year, when you look at the Turkish-Egyptian trade throughout the last 5 to 6 years, there has been constant growth. It started by 10% and it moved up to 25%. And this year, as of this moment, the net increase compared to the same period of 2011, it is 27% net increase.
So we have good news today.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, that's great. Sir, the Turkish investments in the country and the role, of course, that can be played by the private sector in both countries cannot be denied. And that was actually on the agenda also in the latest visit, right?
Sure. The Turkish and Egyptian Business Council, they had about 4.5 hours of networking. Yeah. And when President Morsi arrived, already there was one major agreement, $160 million new investment, fresh funds, fresh technologies, and up to, I think, 1,500 new jobs, only between two companies, individual companies. So on the Turkish side, this time we had about 200 people, and on the Egyptian side, we had 100 Egyptian businessmen and investors. We also want Egyptians to invest in Turkey, in the stock market, in the energy sector, in real estate, and garments. I think we can combine our forces and potentials, and it will be a two-way street. Now Egyptians can buy property more easily in Turkey because we lifted the principle of reciprocity. We are welcoming your businessman to come and invest in Turkey. And also, I have another good news. Those Egyptian citizens who already have a Schengen visa or work permit in the European Union countries, also Egyptian citizens who have the OECD, 27 OECD member states, including United States, Canada, those who have green cards, resident permits in those big states, they will have the facility of, inshallah, in the next couple of weeks, having direct visas at the airport in Istanbul when they fly Turkish Airlines, and I hope it will also cover Egypt Air as well.
Great.
So that's going to be a big promotion.
So the second good news on the daily debate.
And the third one,
the third one.
I'm traveling to Istanbul the day after tomorrow to join your Minister of Tourism.
Right.
And together with His Excellency Minister Zazu, we're going to launch Turkish Airlines direct flights from Istanbul to Sharm el-Sheikh and Istanbul to Hurghada, 7 flights by week and 4 times 7 every month. So there will be a boost in tourism. We'll bring more tourists to Egypt, inshallah.
Great news, Mr. Ambassador, today, and actually we're proud of the boost. Tell us more about the tourism sector, since you're going to have this chance of being with the Minister of Tourism in Istanbul. How are you planning to increase
To tell the truth,
Yeah.
I think the bilateral tourism is far from being satisfactory.
Right.
The number of Egyptians visiting Turkey this year, it increased, but it will be around 70,000 or so. And the number of Turkish tourists visiting Egypt will be around 50,000. I think we should target immediately doubling this, because the tourism is not only promotion of sightseeing, historic venues, etc. It's not only cultural exchange, it's not only foreign exchange currencies to boost one's economy, but on the top of it, it's a natural multiplier of people-to-people business transactions. Who is a tourist? A tourist is an average person who has sufficient economic strength, economic capability, purchase power, to buy a return trip for him and his family, maybe, to stay a certain amount of time in quality residences and do some sightseeing, do shopping, and visit the nice places, enjoy the cuisine. So this is middle and upper middle class people's. It's not a luxury anymore in our global village.
Right.
That's our world has become. Tourism is an area where middle and upper middle class people interact. So I see in every tourist, in every 2 tourists, a potential business transaction. People, if they bring back, or from those Turks who visit Egypt, if they come back with good impressions about the people, about the country, about the country's resources, they come back again for business. So that's why tourism actually multiplies interaction and people-to-people contacts. We need to boost this, and we also need to study very carefully Turkey and Egypt as joint destinations.
Right.
When you come to Cairo, you can go to Antalya. When you go to Istanbul, you can fly to the Red Sea resorts, to Sharm el-Sheikh in Egypt. So I think the historic,
linkage plan.
the civilizational, climatic, and natural beauties, resources of these 2 countries, and their cultural heritage, their monumental historic, riches. This is a remarkable thing which needs to be combined. I believe this is doable, but we need to encourage our travel agencies, our business interlocutors, charter organizers to sit together, give, join their heads, join their visions, and work together. Learn to work together.
Yeah, learn to work together, learn to work as a team. How are we working together on providing incentives for businessmen to come?
I should say, except for a very small number of, I think not more than 4 or 5 very weak companies, all the Turkish enterprises, entrepreneurs, investors who have been in Egypt chose to stay. Some of them lost money, some of them earned less. 1 or 2 temporarily stopped production, but they didn't shy away because of the turmoil and the unrest on the streets, and sometimes occasional lack of, let's say, order. But thanks God, there has not been any loss of life, there has not been any serious damage to property. So the people of Egypt actually welcomed the Turks staying and acting in solidarity with them. Now we believe it is high time to diversify. We are, predominantly in the textile business in Egypt because of your competitive advantages, cheaper labor, cheaper energy, and also land incentives granted by your government. I think the new government will stick the course of promoting direct foreign investments. This has been the statement of Prime Minister Kandil. when we had our delegations, your investments minister, your trade minister, and international cooperation minister asks us to come and invest in other areas. We are interested in investing in tourism sector, investing in energy sector, renewable energy particularly, in the development of West and Northwest Port Said region, building new bridges, new roads, new tunnels, new railways, new storage facilities, new ports, or expanding the existing infrastructure, because Egypt now needs to embrace its future and prepare for the next 25 to 50 years. And you need to expand the delta and also equitably spread the population and the infrastructure and the settlements inside the country. You have the strategic plans, and the new government is very pragmatic. They have been giving very promising statements and commitments. Prime Minister highlighted that the foreign money will come easy and will leave easy. So this is the two things. Only bringing the money, the transfers, the investments, and when they want to go, they should be able to leave out. So this is the name of the game, and I believe Turkey is doing the right thing. We're giving a strong signal to other countries friendly to Egypt, to Egypt's partners, and to other international financial institutions. And this is the time to invest in the future of Egypt. Egypt can do it, and Egypt will achieve it, will succeed.
Hopefully, with the sense of persistence, yes, we will succeed. Forward ever, Egypt and Turkey. Mr. Ambassador, on the cultural dimension, we find the Turkish drama quite appealing to the Egyptian street nowadays. Are there any sense of cooperation in that area?
I think we will have a small surprise in November. I think Cairo Opera is going to perform a very precious treasure from Turkish music history. And we are also very pleased to learn that Cairo International Film Festival will be organized again this year. And we welcome that, because this was one of the shining mirrors of Egypt, with glamour, with beauty and color combined. And you remember so many important celebrities, very famous people come. I understand in the end of November you have the Cairo Festival, and we hope and we intend to participate strongly in that festival. Maybe some familiar faces from the serials will be seen in the Cairo podiums on the red carpet, inshallah. And nice. I am looking forward to a support of government of Egypt to salvage one of the historic beauties. There is a Turkish foundation established by Sultan Mahmud I, and it's in Port Said Avenue in Cairo. We hope to renovate that historic monument as a cultural center, and I'm looking forward to your government's support and approval, endorsement of that. We want to develop and use it together with Egyptian scholars as a civilizational research center between the two religions, two cultures, and more than between all the civilizations. Inshallah, I want, before completing my tenure of service in Egypt, I want to see that project taking off the ground.
Hopefully you'll see it and see your dreams coming true on solid grounds. Mr. Ambassador will not leave you, but a short break. We'll go to a report highlighting news stories in the events. Of course, Turkey, a top headline today. We'll be back after the report. Stay tuned.
Turkey said on Wednesday that it had retaliated with artillery fire against neighboring Syria.
Back, of course, to talk about this top story of the day. And since yesterday, of course, we know that a shelling attack had happened from Syria that struck a Turkish border town, killing 5. Condolences, Mr. Ambassador,
Thank you very
in the first place on this incident. And the reaction, of course, how do you read the reaction? And of course, we know that earlier in the day, the Turkish parliament has authorized troops to go into Syria if required by the government. Are there worries that Turkey might engage in military action?
Turkey is not looking for war in Syria. Turkey is very firmly committed to Syrian unity and integrity. Turkey is committed to the aspirations of the people of Syria to have a government in peace with its own people. We have been saying that consistently, and this did not include or extend in any way into Syria's internal affairs. But look, there is the reality. The situation has become very, very serious. There has been scores of decisions by the Arab League we have been supporting, and we will continue to support. There has been decisions in the UN General Assembly. There has been warnings at the very high level of all friends and allies and partners and all the regional and international community. Yet the Syrian regime cornered itself, put itself into a trap of violence and aggression and brutality and unacceptable treatment of its own people, its own civilians. You cannot, this is not acceptable. You cannot have a government and leadership and a party and a political force which is systematically bombing and shelling, invading with tanks and indiscriminately, brutally violating and killing its own civilians and its own people. This is now not acceptable. It is very tragic, and it is, of course, the problem has the potential of contaminating the region, affecting all the regional states. We share 900 kilometers of common border with Syria. We have nothing but only friendship and loyalty to the people of Syria. The Syrian people has nothing to do with this situation, and this is the result of the mistakes and the persistent violence and aggression of the government and the regime in Syria. Right. Now, since the 16th of September, this situation started affecting our borders. Until then, we only had the people, coming out of Syria and taking refuge, shelter in Turkey. We have currently nearly 90,000 Syrian civilians in camps in Turkey, looked after by Turkey. Despite the lack of commitment from the international community, our government has spent until now more than $300 million, and we have no problems doing that. We will continue providing for the refugees, but the winter is coming, and we will need greater solidarity from the international community. And we have nearly 60,000 more Syrians. They are not in the camps. They have certain basic means of self-sustaining, and they are in our different townships and on their own. So we're talking about 150,000 people. When you look into Jordan and other regional countries, and when you look inside what's happening inside Syria, more than I think 2 million Syrians have been displaced, and nearly 500,000 Syrians are outside their own country, and it's because of this regime. Since 16th of September, there has been repeated occasions that the violence and aggression and these indiscriminate bombings, shellings, machine gunnings, all these heavy weapons being used, that started affecting our borders.
Definitely.
And there has been at least, you should have read our Prime Minister's statement yesterday, that there has been more than 7 incidents where Turkish territory has been affected by the ongoing brutality of Syrian regime against its own citizens. But when it crosses into our border and comes into our own territory, when shells start falling in, and when it reaches to the extent that Turkish citizens, civilians, and even there has been 2 policemen who have been wounded, this is not acceptable. We have cautioned Syria. We have been very patiently and very restrained way, warning Syria about this. We have handed over notes to the Syrian side. And this last incident, this is completely, violation of all international law and established practices. So there has to be an end. The decision of the Turkish parliament to deploy Turkish armed forces beyond the borders, as and when it may be necessary. This is not that Turkey is going to intervene in Syria, but militarily, but this is the demonstration of Turkish deterrent determination to deter any danger that is going to affect its borders and territory. And this is the real red line, and I hope they get the message.
Yeah, hopefully. Is the motion of the parliament, do you think, Mr. Ambassador, that this is quite influential in deterring the Al-Assad regime?
Well, let's hope so. For those people who understand from reason and who know the basic tenets of international law and international relations, this should be a strong and effective message.
Right. Well, some analysts wrote the war of nerves has turned into a war of borders. Well, it's very important that Turkey would defend its citizens, but however, the question is, will it avoid falling into the war trap?
Well, as I said, both the Turkish government, Turkish leadership, Turkish Prime Minister, Turkish Foreign Ministry has made it very clear that while displaying the determination to defend our borders and take whatever action that requires, Turkey has no intention of going into war. So that should be, the message is very clear. And the retaliation which has been conducted following the last infringement and the shelling of our territory was within this perspective, and it has been a legitimate action
response,
to deter and to respond to the aggression that is affecting our territories.
Right. Mr. Ambassador, your reading of the Egyptian perspective and handling vis-à-vis the Syrian crisis, and how about the Turkish perspective?
I must say I commend and I express our profound appreciation in the person of Foreign Minister Kamal Amr. Egyptian government has come up with a very crystal clear statement on this, siding with the truth and siding with Turkey, expressing their solidarity with us. The people and government of Turkey, we are grateful for that. Beyond that, of course, you have the initiative launched by His Excellency President Morsi in the Mecca summit,
right.
The Quartet initiative. The Saudis have attended the first round, and we keep on talking to the Saudis. Egypt is talking to the Saudis from their perspective. And we support and we continue supporting Egypt's initiative. Hopefully there will be some responsible influence of this initiative as well. But we found it as a useful step forward to again gain regional ownership of this very dangerous situation.